Mr. President, we are in trouble. We remember when the phrase "sound as a dollar" was an expression of absolute dependability until inflation began to shrink our dollar and our savings. We've always had a faith that the days of our children would be better than our own. Our people are losing that faith. It is a crisis of confidence. It is a crisis that strikes at the very heart and soul and spirit of our national will. Mr. President, you're not leading this nation. We've gone from a position of energy independence to one in which almost half the oil we use comes from foreign countries. Our excessive dependence on OPEC has already taken a tremendous toll on our economy and our people. Our neck is stretched over the fence, and OPEC has a knife. Mr. President, we've got to use what we have. We have the natural resources. We have more oil in our shale alone than several Saudi Arabias. We have more coal than any nation on earth. The real issue is freedom. Mr. President, you're not leading this nation. You don't see the people enough anymore. Washington, D.C. has become an island. The gap between our citizens and our government has never been so wide. We must face the truth. What can we do? We know the strength of America. We are strong. We can regain our unity. We can regain our confidence. Restoring that faith and that confidence to America is now the most important task we face. The path of common purpose and the restoration of American values. That path leads to true freedom for our nation and ourselves.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Is it 2025 yet? Hey guys, did you miss me? No? It's nice to see everybody here. Not quite Happy New Year, but we're getting there. It's close. And what an end to the year it turned out to be. How was your Christmas? I had a good one. It was, when you got a new baby and we traveled with the baby for the very first time. Thankfully, we got a new family truckster, a new minivan. That helped a lot. I don't think we could have made this trip without it. But there was a lot of bumps and bruises on getting there and getting back. But it was nice to see my family. Got to see my brother Justin in person. My beautiful baby came with me to see Papa. My sister, my nephew, wife in tow. And we even got to relax a little bit when we got back home. I hope that you guys had a great holiday, and I'm just curious, you got any New Year's plans? Are you guys already starting to think about your New Year's resolutions? Well, I have resolved that the 4 Liberty Network is going to take over the internet in 2025. What's up, John Rail, Drew Van Runkle, Quest Fanning, Quantum Kitty? Yes, I missed you too, Quantum. In Jam 77, T-Mill I saw was here a little bit earlier as well. Who else is hanging out with us this morning? Excuse me. Oh, Kermode Bear. Yeah, no, it wasn't the same without you guys. It felt a little weird going so many days without doing the Wake Up America show, but it was sorely needed. Everybody needs a little bit of a break and a little bit of rest and relaxation, which is a reminder to you that we do still have one more day off. Yep. God, guys, calm down. Wednesday. So New Year's Day is another day of rest for AP. Just going to break this week up. Monday, Tuesday, no show. Thursday, Friday, show. Everything should be good and fine and beautiful. Nice to see you guys. Make sure as you're filing in today to sit down and hang out with us that you click the like button. And if today's your first time watching the Wake Up America show and you're saying to yourself, hey, this is a fun show, I definitely want to hang out with this crew again, make sure you click the follow button over there on Rumble as well so that you can get notifications whenever we go live, which is every Monday through Friday, typically. except for holidays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time on the Wake Up America show. If you'd like to communicate with the show directly today during the live show, or even later if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, you can send us a text at 573-319-1586. Again, the text lines are open at 573-319-1586. Jimmy Carter passed away at 100 years old yesterday. The obituaries started rolling out fast and furious across the World Wide Web. Who uses the World Wide Web term anymore? I don't know, but I do. But Jimmy, it's as old as Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter passed away and will not be able to make it to the Donald Trump inauguration. Thanks, Babylon B, for that one. That's wrong. That's wrong. Dance for me, Austin. Dance. Yes, I will dance the maracas, the mariachi. Let's get ourselves warmed back up into the Wake Up America show, into the routine, help you get your new year started right. We're going to transition you over. Things might still be a little slow this week, a little bit clunky as we kind of like, sort of shake off the dust or the sort of the, the, what do you call it? The laziness in our brains. No, don't use the term laziness. That would be wrong. Don't you dare call your fellow Americans lazy. God, please, no. The MAGA Civil War began over the last week when half-drunk, half-stoned Americans were all at home on the winter break with their phones, watching Christmas movies and screaming at Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy for opinions that they had regarding H-1B visas. Are we big fans? Yes, we love H-1B visas, right? No? No? I know what it is. I know what it is. You guys just don't want anybody like this around.
Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice. Good morning, pineapple. Looking very good, very nice.
The MAGA Civil War. Is it really a civil war, or is it just people actually having a reasonable disagreement? Some people, of course, were being quite unreasonable online, and I certainly traded barbs and jabs with those who don't particularly like my libertarian views when it comes to the question of who owns a job. We split MAGA into two factions in this fight. The techno-libertarian bros, which brought Donald Trump victory in the 2024 election, and the Turker Jerb bros. I posted the meme of the MAGA Civil War, and it was from that movie Civil War with the guy with the red sunglasses. He's like, what kind of American are you? And it was like, are you a techno-libertarian MAGA bro, or are you a Turker Jerb libertarian bro? Hey, newsflash, here's how I feel about it. The job doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to the government. It belongs to the business owner. There you go. How about that? Here's a radical idea for you. We're going to talk about all that and more this morning. John Miltimore will be joining us live today at 8 a.m. Central Time. It's Monday, so Mondays with Miltimore it is. Turker Jerb. You can't. By the way, you can't take somebody's job because jobs are freely given. It's not your job. The business owners, we create the jobs, right? The employers. And a lot of people I know have never signed the front of a paycheck. But if you've never signed the front part of a paycheck, I can assure you it's very painful and very difficult. It's not just mega corporations taking, the man. We're not all the man, your bosses, your employers. We're not all just like, they wanted to give our job to an Indian man, right? I know that like Democrats have moved over into the Republican Party because of how the left has gone woke. But if the Democrats in the Republican Party want to be in the Republican Party, we need to be fiscal conservatives. We need to be capitalists. Let the left be socialists. Let's be for freedom and limited government. I'd love to meet Quantum Kitty over there in the chat. Says that if she goes through, going to try to route to take AP and Steffi and Hazel to dinner to something. Ooh, me likey. Why don't you do us a favor, Kilsharian, and if you can on your travels, stop by Alberta, Canada, the province of Alberta. It's time for us, I say, to have a national referendum. No, I don't want all of Canada, but everything west of Ontario, I think, should be fair game. And Albertans seem to agree. Ooh, excuse me.
Dear Americans, on behalf of all the Albertans who are ready to join the United States, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of citizenship which I am about to enter. So help me God.
Yes, we are taking Canada. No, not Canada. I don't want all of Canada. A lot of them are still going to vote for like Trudeau people here in the United States. But I say if Alberta wants to have, if we have a national referendum, or excuse me, a provincial referendum, if the province of Alberta wants to vote. Now, remember, I know that people are going to be really upset and up in arms about that. And I know Greenland is starting to feel a little bit weird about the rumblings and grumblings of Donald Trump and possibly acquiring Greenland. But hear me out on this one. If they really love democracy as much as they say they do, the left I'm speaking about, if they really do love democracy, right? Well, democracy, we must say our democracy, then why don't we put it to a vote? How about we encourage the residents, the citizens of the province of Alberta, Canada, which has a lot of oil, by the way, and we ask them to do a provincial referendum. It's only fair. It's just a vote, right? It's a democracy, right? We believe in democracy, don't we? Well, how about it? Alberta, Canada, vote to join the United States. No, that's whistling Dixie. What is how's the glory, glory, hallelujah. Sing it with me, guys. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. We're gonna take Canada. Mine eyes have seen the vision of the oil fields of Alberta, and we're coming for your freedoms, and we're gonna take your state. We're gonna make this country even greater in 2025 when Trudeau goes marching out. I don't know. I thought it was okay. Hey, Drew Van Runkle. Thanks for the $5 donation, brother. We are doing bonus content today. Everybody hates prices. Today's bonus content will come to you if we hit that $75 bonus content. What do we call it? Just a goal? Just about $75 bonus content goal. Yes. We're $5 there. We're $5 on the way there. How do we get there? Rumble Rants, or you can go to the website, go to 4libertyshop.com, the number 4 liquid gold, the number 4 libertyshop.com. Guys, did you see that we launched our new tea brand? I'm so excited. I'm so scared. You know, tea is becoming very popular in the United States. It was once seen as a drink of traitors. And we threw it in the harbor, but now Americans are kind of like, I need something kind of in between coffee and green tea, which has, the no caffeine and a little caffeine, right? And tea is really good for that. So if you go to 4libertyshop.com, 4libertyshop.com, and buy yourself some tea, it's priced $17.76 a bag delivered. That's with the shipping included. If you go to 4libertyshop.com, buy yourself some bags of tea, and don't throw it in the harbor. It's too good to throw this one in the harbor. And besides, the British are our allies now, and we don't have to apply patriotism necessarily to a beverage. Although it is a little bit more patriotic if you drink the coffee over at 4libertyshop.com. So yes. He ain't gonna jump no more. Okay, so the MAGA Civil War. We're going to talk about what is dividing the MAGA movement. Spoiler alert: Donald Trump did support Elon Musk in this battle, and Elon Musk has had a lot of pushback, and he's pushed back himself, and he's also squished a little bit and said, okay, yeah, we do need a little bit of reform there. So we're going to talk this morning about that. And I've got, what else do I have here? Let's see, Jimmy Carter. Oh, the deregulator. This is going to be a great show today if we can get everything. Joe Biden. What happened to Joe Biden? GOP pundit Scott Jennings slapped down CNN commentators' rosy view of the Biden presidency, saying that he's going to leave office in disgrace. Take a listen. Okay, where is the clip? Yeah, I thought I had the clip, but where are you at, Scott Jennings? There he is. Oh no, this is not the wrong. I thought I had the Scott Jennings clip from CNN, but let's see if I do actually. Hold on one second, guys. Please be patient. We're trying to get back into the Wake Up America show routine here. Here we go. But hopefully, come on, don't play a commercial. Don't do it. Oh, God. All right, guys, there you go. There's a free commercial for Oral-B over there. This ad will end in 9 seconds. Don't you hate that? How come there's no audio? Wow, they're just like not going to play audio for that clip. All right. Wait, look at there. Always allow sound. There we go.
I think that's a big deal. I think it's important.
Shape today. I think the Middle East is in better shape today than when he took office.
Well, I think he got our hostages home. I think that's a big deal. I think it's important.
I'm sorry, which hostages?
He's gotten a number of people home. He was able.
There's still 100 people over there.
Well, there were more than
including some Americans. Look, I think he's gonna leave office in disgrace. The Hunter Biden pardon was disgraceful. He's going to be remembered largely for inflation and for the disastrous Afghanistan pullout. And I think as we continue to, we're just getting the first draft of this now, but as we continue to learn about the massive cover-up that went on, not about his health, but about his mental acuity.
Scott Jennings, I don't know how they continue to let him remain on CNN speaking truth the way that he does. He's kind of becoming a superstar. He's poised for the next 4 years to be in a great position. But it has been so weird to see a presidency with a man in total decline. It's not even just like with Ronald Reagan, where it was just towards the end of his presidency that there was a decline. It was actually the entire presidency that Joe Biden was checked out. Thank you, guys. I see somebody went to For Liberty Shop this morning and decided to buy some tea, which means that you've unlocked the bonus content already. Andy, you're so generous. Thanks, brother. Happy early New Year. In the Virgin Islands on vacation, Joe Biden addressed a plane crash in Azerbaijan, but he has no idea where he's at or who he is.
Mr. President, should Putin take responsibility for the plane crash? Should Putin take responsibility for the plane crash?
There's Hunter.
Do you plan to speak to him? Update, Mr. President.
Yeah, Joe Biden, he has no idea what's going on over there. Vacationing with Hunter Biden. Biden's legacy in the presidency.
I think he showed up for the job. He got the work done. I think some of the accomplishments also in the Middle East and foreign policy will also stand the test of time.
You think the Middle East is in better shape today than when he took office?
Well, I think he got our hostages home. I think that's a big deal. I think it's important.
I'm sorry, which hostages?
He's gotten a number of people home. He was able.
There's still 100 people over there.
Well, there were more than
including some Americans. Look, I think he's gonna leave office in disgrace. The Hunter Biden pardon was disgraceful. He's going to be remembered largely for inflation and for the disastrous Afghanistan pullout. And I think as we continue to, we're just getting the first draft of this now, but as we continue to learn about the massive cover-up that went on.
Your eye makeup's a little thick there, Scott.
Not about his health, but about his mental acuity. To cover that up, the efforts that were undertaken by the White House staff, by his family, not in the last couple of months, but for all 4 years, I think it's going to be a really ugly chapter. It's a diminished presidency because of it. And I think we still don't know the full extent of what they did to try to hide what they've been doing over in the West.
I like diminished presidency. That's a good word. Diminished presidency. That's Scott Jennings. Byron York, he joined Fox News over the last week, to weigh in on the diminished Biden presidency. Diminished. It's very diminished.
It's very possible, but let's be clear. The reason why he pardons Hunter Biden is because Hunter was the bag man. He was the one making all the travel, moving the money around, working with the business partners. He had daddy on the phone at a moment's notice anytime he needed somebody to make sure that Hunter had access to the big guy, which is Joe Biden. So, of course, going out the door, this is what Joe Biden has to do, not just to protect himself, but to protect his family, because this family has been built on the corruption of Joe Biden's position. That's the bottom line. Does the brother, Jim Biden, does he get a pardon? It's possible. The Oversight Committee, we already uncovered that it was Jim Biden's wife that wrote.
Did I say Byron York? I meant Byron Donalds.
A check to Joe Biden for $40,000. And that $40,000, if you follow the money, it comes from one of the business interests that Hunter Biden had because of his connection, obviously, to his father, who was the top of our politics for a very long time.
Laying it out. Byron Donalds. Why did I say Byron York? What the hell is Byron York? He continued on another Fox News show.
Look, I think what's happening with Joe Biden, nobody thinks he even knows about these clemencies or these pardons. This is the radical left staff that has been running this administration for the last 4 years. And so I agree with President Trump in what he said about these 37 individuals who've been granted clemency. This is outrageous. They should not have a Merry Christmas, to be perfectly blunt with you. But this is because...
Wait, excuse me? Did you say don't have a Merry Christmas? How dare you, sir? No. You must never, ever say such a thing.
We have the radical left doing all the things they've been wanting to do for a very long time on their way out the door, while Joe Biden's at the beach or taking a nap or whatever it is he's doing.
Do you think he's
not taking a nap?
We are a country that doesn't have a president right now.
Do you think he had any?
It's Byron Donalds has got to be one of the best representatives we have in the U.S. Congress today. I mean, come on.
Any idea what he was doing?
Say that again, Greg.
Do you think he knew what he was signing?
No, I don't think
what
he knew
was
what he was
doing?
No, I don't. Look,
good stuff. Good stuff, Byron.
I don't know. I mean, it is crazy that this guy is about to walk into the White House for a second time. And again, I kept saying on the campaign trail, this guy doesn't know who our friends are. Now, I can tell you that he loves to pal around with Putin, and we know that Putin has decided that he wants to bring back the former coalition that they used to have, and that's why he went into Ukraine. I am here to say that we've got to have really good people around Trump. And right now, the people he's picking are not the best people, because somebody needs to explain to him in a very elementary way why we don't go after our friends, why we don't start wars. And honestly, that includes even tariff wars with our friends.
Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
That's Jasmine Crockett questioning Donald Trump's intelligence. Question her intelligence. President of the United States, Donald Trump. I guess incoming President-elect Donald Trump. We have what looks like 21 more days until Donald Trump is official President of the United States again. He's still your president. And we're going to be talking about a MAGA civil war after the bonus content, which was unlocked thanks to Drew Van Runkle, thanks to Andy Opperman, and the generosity of all the people who support the show. Thank you very much for unlocking the bonus content. Everybody hates the pricing system. It's a terrible system, but it's only better than every other system that there is in the world. It's called freedom. We'll be right back.
The unseen side of the system. Have you ever felt furious seeing prices surge? It's not just you. People worldwide take issue with pricing systems. From rent hikes to minimum wage debates, prices stir emotions, yet they govern the world's economy. Let's explore why prices exist and why we secretly can't live without them. Prices aren't just numbers. They signal value and regulate resources. They guide producers and consumers to make choices, ensuring that scarce resources are allocated wisely. Without prices, chaos reigns. Too much demand, not enough supply. Ever wondered what happens when this system is disrupted? Spoiler, it's not pretty. In society, prices often feel unfair. Rent seems unaffordable. Medicine costs too much. Surge pricing during holidays feels exploitative. Politicians and activists target these frustrations, promising affordability. But are price controls truly the solution? Think about surge pricing for fast food or ride shares. Sure, the extra cost stings, but it also incentivizes supply during peak demand. When businesses adjust prices dynamically, the system balances itself. Rent control is often hailed as a solution to housing unaffordability. However, capping rents distorts the market, discouraging property improvements and shrinking housing availability. Paradoxically, the people it's meant to help end up struggling the most. What if prices, unhampered, naturally guide housing stability? Setting a higher minimum wage sounds like a win for workers. Yet mandating wages above market rates can lead to reduced jobs or resource cuts elsewhere. Could it be that prioritizing economic growth instead, without forced wage caps, might result in better earning opportunities for all? Price controls often lead to unforeseen ripple effects. Shortages emerge because demand outpaces supply. Businesses may lower quality to maintain profit margins. Entire industries can struggle when restrictions stifle natural adjustments. These interventions affect consumers most, trapping societies in cycles of economic instability. Prices reflect scarcity and preference, nudging the system toward balance. Imagine a world without prices, a recipe for inefficiency and disorder. Prices act as silent organizers, helping communities prioritize. Even though nobody likes prices, respecting their role is critical to innovation and progress. It's easy to villainize higher prices or dynamic systems. Terms like corporate greed resonate emotionally, but oversimplify the problem. Educating ourselves about their necessity can reshape these damaging beliefs. An unrestricted pricing system may sound harsh, but supports long-term health. Markets tend to self-correct through competition. By allowing fair price adjustments, businesses optimize production and respond faster to shifting demands. History shows that unchecked markets consistently outperform heavily regulated systems. Are surging prices unethical, or is restraining them more harmful? Critics point to affordability crises, but blocking price signals prevents sustainable growth. Ethically, it's worth examining whether bold political decisions against pricing exploit public misunderstanding for popularity rather than addressing structural improvements. Stable pricing fosters opportunity and equality by generating wealth. Countries over-regulating prices often see increased poverty. While uncomfortable, respecting the price system aligns communities for survival and success. Broadly, pricing stability enhances education, healthcare, and job accessibility when left to dynamic forces. So next time you feel angry at rising costs, pause and think. Prices keep our economy afloat. They're the unsung heroes of stability amid chaos. Let's champion systems that allow natural economic flows instead of disrupting them, ensuring progress not just for some, but all. If this resonated, share this video. Challenge your opinions about prices and advocate for informed debates around economic policies. The future isn't about hating prices. It's about understanding their role in creating opportunity. Let's make smarter decisions and thrive together.
Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. We'd be glad to have you come back here and join us. The show's scheduled every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Click the like button if you haven't already, and click follow underneath the video. If today is your first time watching the show, you want to get alerts to come back and join us when the show starts. An erupting civil war in MAGA world over foreign workers has shown a fresh spotlight on a visa scheme that's become the backbone of the country's highly skilled tech industry. The brewing conflict has underscored the schism between one of President-elect Trump's cornerstone pledges, cracking down on immigration, and his Silicon Valley supporters, those techno-libertarians, many of whom their businesses depend on attracting foreign workers. No one epitomizes the fracture among the MAGA movement more than Elon Musk, who has become one of Trump's most influential and prominent backers. Musk is a South African immigrant who previously held the coveted H-1B visas and whose businesses rely on attracting the best engineering talent from around the world. He's emerged as one of the most vocal defenders of the H-1B visa program, but other MAGA figures like activist Laura Loomer have maintained a more hardline immigration stance, arguing the United States should prioritize American workers over foreign ones. Milo Yiannopoulos yesterday on X posted no immigration at all, complete and total moratorium for 20 years. I note that Milo Yiannopoulos is a foreigner. Yes, he's not from here. Can we make that retroactive? What is the H-1B visa scheme? Well, the H-1B visa allows for skilled workers in, quote, specialty occupations to live and work in the U.S. under a, quote, non-immigrant status. It enables American companies to employ foreign workers who have highly specialized theoretical or technical skills. Proponents argue that the program allows the U.S. to retain a competitive edge in STEM fields by attracting the most highly skilled professionals worldwide. H-1B applicants are supposed to have a bachelor's degree or equivalent in a field relevant to their specialty occupation. Approval for the visa requires sponsorship from a prospective employer who must file a petition with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. In the petition, the employer attests that they will appropriately pay the foreign worker and that their employment won't negatively impact similarly employed U.S. workers. Canada has similar schemes. I remember when I traveled, I was speaking in upstate New York, and I had to fly into Canada and then drive back across the border into the United States to get to this very remote New York university. And when I landed in Canada, you have to go through customs and immigration. And when I spoke to the customs officer there, they said, what is the purpose of your trip to Canada? Is it personal or is it business? And I said, well, it's business, but I'm not really going to Canada. I'm going to the United States. And she just looked at me with this very severe look in her eyes and she said, you're here for business? You're here for work to do a job? And I was like, yeah, but I'm going across the border to the United States. I'm going back. I just flew into your airport and I'm just going back across the border. And she goes, is there no one here in Canada that can do your job? And I'm like, I wanted to be like, lady, unless there's any former presidential candidates in Canada talking about their campaign who could, then I'm pretty sure that there's nobody in Canada who can do my job. No. Sneering at Commies joins us live here on the Wake Up America show. For the first time, I haven't seen your comments. Glad to have you here. Says, so much weird crap is happening on X right now. It's true. It's hard to know what to think. One thing is for sure, Vivek, Elon, and others had no problem blatantly insulting tens of millions of Americans, which is what we conservatives and libertarians do every single day. We insult our fellow Americans, primarily leftists, and we insult each other. I recognize that it's not cool to shoot inside the tent. I get it. I understand. But how can we on one hand say that we have become a participation trophy nation, participation trophies, participation medals, and not think that that doesn't affect us? You see, the problem is that everybody would love to believe that Donald Trump can come into office and just pass a few laws and nobody has to change anything that they're doing and things are going to magically get better. But that's not how this works. We're going to have to, if we want to make our country better, if we want to make, here's the thing, make America great again implies that America isn't great at the moment. See what I'm saying? So, we don't want to, Elon and Vivek are insulting Americans. Well, yeah, make America great again. Isn't there sort of a veiled insult there, right? Make America great again, meaning that we once were great, but we're not great right now. So, doesn't that imply then that there might be some criticisms and critiques that can be offered? Here's the thing, and we're going to get into more of the details. I have like detailed charts showing, people that have come in on this H-1B visa program. They're like 7-Eleven workers and like all these ridiculous things that the program wasn't meant for. And apparently there's 10 times more people that they say are being admitted. At least the government is approving them. Not everyone who is applying for an H-1B visa who is approved actually comes, not every job is filled. So even though the government is approving 10 times more H-1B visa applications than the statute says, not everyone that's approved is actually taking that job. Not all of those jobs are being filled. At least this is according to the data that I'm pulling from someone who's very much against the H-1B visa program this morning. Sneering at commies. I think that you've really latched on to something here when you said, I definitely don't think things will magically get better. We need this debate. We need to get better squashing the trolls. I do believe that the left and foreign agents who want to sow discord in the United States probably do run this is my conspiracy theory. But I do believe that foreign governments and malign actors online create bot armies to artificially inflate the hatred and the vitriol and the anger online. And we probably would not, we definitely would not speak to each other in person the way that we speak to each other online, but you'll frequently see these anime avatars or accounts that it's the mysterious their origin. They have like 20 followers and all they do is just stir up hate and discord, right? A lot of those are either bots, or sometimes I think that they're Chinese agents or Russian agents or just Democratic apparatchiks or just trolls that are trying to cause discord and trying to cause drive a wedge between Donald Trump and Elon Musk in the MAGA coalition. But this concept, this idea, what I am seeing on the MAGA right, remember, you wanted techno-libertarians in the MAGA coalition, right? You wanted Elon Musk, and everybody attributes the Donald Trump victory in large part to Elon Musk. Well, I'll say this loud and proudly and clearly, that one of the big reasons I was so supportive of Donald Trump was because I was in, and still am in, the Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy camp. And I think both of them made excellent points in this debate, in this discussion, in this argument. If we want to make America great again, we are going to have to examine some of our priors. We're going to have to ask ourselves whether or not we are willing to make the sacrifices that are necessary to take our economy to the next level. You can't magically just introduce growth, 10x your growth in a country, and we're not going to be able to print our way out of this national debt, and we're certainly not going to print our way out of inflation, because the inflation is a direct result of the behaviors of the Federal Reserve, which I find fascinating too. The Federal Reserve has a dual mandate, and one of the mandates of the Federal Reserve is to maintain low unemployment. So I'm just curious, why does a bank have a mandate of maintaining low employment? Maybe the question shouldn't be about immigrants, Turkin or Gerbs. Maybe it should be at the bank itself, which has a mandate to maintain low unemployment. But I do see and hear stories from a lot of people who work in the tech industry, and a lot of people trying to convince me that I don't work in tech. I mean, literally everything I do is technology. E-commerce is only one aspect of my tech business, which is podcasting, video production. I mean, what could be more tech? You want to put entertainment industry, entertainment and tech is what my business is. So I know a thing or two about technology. And people were saying, Austin, you don't work in tech. You don't know anything about tech. I'm a programmer and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's nice. I guess we could say Jeff Bezos doesn't work in tech, right? As Amazon is not a tech company, right? I compete with Amazon, okay? I try not to compete with Amazon, trying to avoid them as much as I can, but I do work in tech. This is a tech business, and everything solely relies on technology. It's, Rumble's underlying platform, Local's underlying platform, PayPal, underlying payment processor, QuickBooks, Intuit. Literally, without technology, my business does not exist. So let's just, face the facts. Austin Peterson, For Liberty Network, this is a tech company. Okay, well, that's fine. I know a lot of developers and people that I've worked with and applications. Jeff Bezos sits above that and runs all of the technical things that go underneath him, right? But he doesn't sit around programming. But he hires lots of programmers, right? And I've hired programmers, and I've done some programming myself. I can do a little HTML. And now that ChatGPT is here taking your programmer jobs, you don't need to worry about the Indians coming to take your jobs. You guys probably need to be focused a little bit more on what AI is doing to take over high-tech jobs. But regardless, The question here is about the suppression of wages, the downward impact on prices, the price being the wage, the downward impact of prices that importing foreign labor will have on the tech industry and the tech jobs. Now, from a cultural angle, it is fascinating that you have these conservatives, and most people who work in tech aren't conservative, don't like conservatives, work against conservatives. But it is nice that conservatives who have been lecturing libertarians on like, oh, you don't want the enemy, just stop supporting your enemies, all this stuff, don't realize that, you know, in pushing to fight to save American tech jobs, I mean, you're literally working to support Americans who hate you and are working against you 98% of the time, right? Elon Musk, and I imagine a few of the people who work at his companies and corporations, and Rumble and Locals, there are some tech companies that have conservative vibes on them, but it's very rare, right? Very, very rare. And so that's one point on that when it comes to the saving the tech worker's job, right? But one of the consequences of more and more people going in and working in an industry, as an industry proliferates, is that there's a natural downward pressure on prices, aka wages, a natural downward pressure that occurs no matter what. And there's this question here. You know, I've seen Steve Bannon and some of these other people, these MAGA people, complaining, saying things like Americans shouldn't have to compete with foreign workers and all that kind of stuff, which honestly, I'm flabbergasted by that opinion. I did not expect to hear conservative right-wing people saying to me that they don't think that American workers should have to compete with the world. I mean, we're not going back to isolationist America. It's a global economy and a global market, whether you like it or not. I saw Tim Pool, who I like, by the way, saying free trade is the worst thing that's ever happened. And I just responded to his tweet by saying, sent from iPhone. People will complain about free trade and the global economy and the marketplace and still pay Jeff Bezos $178 a year for Amazon Prime so that they can get their packages in 2 days. My business, especially in the early days when I was doing a lot more 3D printing, my business would not be able to operate without parts for 3D printers from China. And so this whole system, there's a whole economy here in the United States that exists with an underlying basis that relies on the fact that we can get important commodity items to run our businesses cheaply and effectively in the amount of time that's necessary for us to be able to make a profit. But Austin, what about the American workers? And I'll say, okay, well, all right, Elizabeth Warren. Okay, Bernie Sanders. I get it. What are we going to do for the American working man? Well, first of all, we have to ask ourselves, if we have had this glut of tech workers, because it was a gold mine, just kind of like think of it as like the San Francisco gold rush, right? Everybody rushes in, right? And everybody is trying to get rich in the tech business. They're going to Silicon Valley. They're trying to, they're high tech, they're coding, right? They're working at one agency or another. Sooner or later, the supply outstrips the demand. What does that do? Well, what that does is that drives down wages naturally. I mean, we have a lot of lawyers in this country, perhaps too many lawyers. Can you imagine what would happen if Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are actually successful with Doge? There would be, if we had fewer laws, you'd need fewer lawyers to litigate that. So I can hear the lawyers out there arguing for protectionism.
No, God, please, no, 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 no.
But in this discussion, and I'm glad you brought this up, sneering at commies, he says, yeah, I'm not interested in isolationism and I'm not anti-legal immigration. I've heard many times over the years how much discrimination there is now towards whites, Asians, and males. Correct. Ding, 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 ding. What do we have for her, Johnny? And that is what has to change, right? The diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's what has to change, is the drive, the incentives that the corporations have to hire anyone but white men. Remember, if you're a woman, and if you're a white woman in this country, you're fine. You're protected, right? That's why they don't tend to be our allies, except many of them did vote for Donald Trump. Thank you, ladies. But if you are a white male in the United States, there has been a disincentive on hiring you. There was a word that I heard that people were using calling stale, male, and pale. That's how they describe us. But in 2024, corporate America drew back from DEI, and still the upheaval isn't over. From Ford to Walmart, some big companies dialed back on diversity efforts, and we need to go further. As activists pressed under the next Trump administration, that pressure will grow. So here's where the fight is. Mighty Megatron says, IT is really effed right now. They're trying to have all these certs and experience without trying to pay you. It's really disturbing. No, I totally get it, Mighty Megatron. And, you know, needless to say, I have hired people in IT to do a lot of work for me over the years. And sometimes I have to go to Fiverr.com and hire a guy in Pakistan. Sometimes that's what I can afford, right? Not all business owners who hire people overseas. Oh my God, Austin, right? I didn't import them here. What I don't understand is, why do you have to import the immigrants here? Why not just do the remote work and have them, you know, employed through Fiverr? You know what I'm saying, right? Just hire Ramaswamy overseas. Corporate America pulled back on diversity programs in 2024 under pressure from activists. In the new year, it will face an even more powerful challenger. Trump's second administration is gearing up to end diversity, equity, and inclusion. You love to see it. Policies in government and dozens of business programs, after many of the same concepts came under attack at some of the biggest U.S. companies. Mike Davis, a former Senate lawyer who runs the Article 3 project, that's Will Chamberlain works with them too. He's been a guest on this show. Says the pendulum is swinging back very hard against DEI, said Mike Davis. DEI says there are 61 federal programs that are ripe for litigation and elimination, including technical assistance for minority farmers and contracting preferences for minority-owned law firms, helping to collect U.S. debts. It will have an ally inside the White House. Trump advisor Stephen Miller ran a group that also sued companies over DEI policies. Great. Sneering Economy is giving some very substantive comments this morning. Costco is telling their policy stockholders to not let go of their DEI policy. That doesn't surprise me. The best dang food monopoly store we have, I know of, that isn't Amazon. There we go. Look, it's Liz says, just train our own students. These foreign students study here. So here's the thing that you're not going to like to hear, and this is the stuff that made people angry, is this conversation about our mediocrity culture here in the United States. This is what got people really pissed online. The fight exposes one of the MAGA movement's deepest contradictions. It came to prominence chiefly via the white, less educated, not that that's a bad thing, working class, but now it's kind of under the control of the billionaire technologists and industrialists, many of them immigrants, like Elon Musk, right? But it's also set up this tense MAGA versus Doge moment that could infect the early stages of the Trump presidency. The skirmishes started last Sunday when Trump named venture capitalist Sriram Krishnan as his advisor on AI policy. Krishnan's appointment triggered an anti-Indian backlash on social media, particularly given his past advocacy for lifting caps on green cards. So once Trump named this guy as his advisor on AI policy, people dug into his comments, and he said things about green cards, lifting caps on green cards, and MAGA kind of freaked out. Then Vivek Ramaswamy weighed in when he made a post on X blaming American culture that venerated mediocrity over excellence for the growth in foreign tech workers, a culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers, Ramaswamy wrote. He was calling for a 1950s-style Sputnik moment to prioritize nerdiness over conformity. That's the work we have cut out for us, rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence. He's right to some extent. Maybe he's wrong on others. I was reading a quote about this from ancient Greece, and I think it was Thucydides who wrote about this, saying that a nation that separates its warriors and its intellectuals, that separates fighting from intellectualism, will have its books written by idiots, and it'll have its books written by weak men, and will have its fighting done by fools, right? Which I think is an interesting quote there, right? So really, in an ideal sense, it would be great if we were athletes and we were math Olympiads. But nonetheless, there was for a while, there still is an anti-intellectualism in modern American culture. And you can see it in the disdain for any literature, especially on the right, any literature that is not Lord of the Rings. It doesn't really get brought up in conservative culture. And it's the same when it comes to the left. If it's not a Harry Potter reference, the left is not interested. And that isn't to say that most of the people who are going to make those references have actually read the books. Most of them haven't. But if you haven't noticed, we have a serious literary, what's the word for it here? Isn't that ironic, or what would you say the word is? Another incorrect term for this one, but no, irony. That you can't think of the term while you're trying to think of. Literacy rate, there it is. It's still 7:54 a.m. Central and shaking off the sleep. I read that we were 36th in the developed world in terms of our literacy rates. If we're 36th in the developed world when it comes to just our literacy rates alone, can you imagine what our fellow Americans' economic understandings may be? Now think about that and how that might be coloring the debate. We're in trouble, and the solutions to the problems probably don't necessarily rely on reforming H-1B visas. I'm open to that possibility, by the way. I'm not saying one way or another. I don't necessarily feel strongly about H-1B visas. I will say that I think that we should probably scrap all of the visa programs and just let people hire who they want, because the jobs don't belong to the worker. They don't belong to the government. They don't belong to the common good. They belong to the employer. But I'm on the techno-libertarian, Elon Musk, Vivek, Ramaswamy side of this. People can't spell. They can't write. They can't do math. They can barely speak correctly. They ask you a question. They don't ask you a question. And this is American culture. Now, it's different. There are different cultures in the United States. Some of them value literacy more than others. And some of us are quite economically literate and literate in terms of literature. But there is a problem with anti-intellectualism in the United States. Art and music and reading and the humanities. These things are pushed to the side to say, oh, well, we're going to make way for STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And that's all well and good. And then you have a division where you have people in the culture, in the arts, who are economically illiterate, who are the ones who are actually having an impact on the way the American people feel. And if they're literate, but they're economically illiterate, meaning they can write plays and they can read and write books and they can produce movies and documentaries and television shows, then the culture that you get are going to be an army of literate economic illiterates. In other words, Marxist leftists will control the culture because we as a society do not value, or at least on the right, we do not value intellectualism to the degree that we are going to teach our kids the difference between there and your and your. Am I right? I mean, there is a bit of especially after the COVID-19 pandemic hit, I've hired Indian Americans, people who are here on a green card, people who were here on a visa. I've hired people in those positions. I've hired Indians, people who became naturalized citizens, immigrants to the United States. I've hired natural-born American citizens. I've hired American citizens who are of Indian origin, but they were born here. And there is a difference in the attitude towards work that Indian culture has versus Americans in American culture. It's not to say that I haven't hired Americans who have a good work ethic and who do quality work, but there is a sincere cultural difference in the United States towards work that Indian Americans do not share. And if you've never hired Americans or hired Americans and Indian people, it can be difficult to note that, because here's the thing. I know not everybody wants to do it, and I guess not everybody can, is what I'm hearing, right? I don't want to work 80 hours a week and stuff like that. Well, it's like, I understand entrepreneurs live like most people won't, so that entrepreneurs can live like most people can't, right? Maybe, I do think we do need to have a more entrepreneurial spirit. Part of the big problem in this debate is that a lot of people just see themselves as obedient workers. Woodrow Wilson set up the American public education system in a way so that he said that only a few people should get a classical liberal education, and then everybody else just needs to be able to manually do things with their hands because most people are retarded. That's what Woodrow Wilson thought. So he created the public education system to encourage that. And now we have armies of people who live paycheck to paycheck who say, I can't be done. It can't be done. We can't be done. No, I can't do this. I can't do that. Right? I won't do that. I can't do that. I'm going to go work for the boss. I'm going to go pull a paycheck and I'm going to live paycheck to paycheck. Well, let me just say this, that the people who say that it can't be done should not stand in the way of the people doing it. We'll be right back to see what John Miltimore has to say about this. He knows an economic thing or two. We'll be right back on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist. Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins.
In the National Libertarian view, immigration policy should not be labor policy, certainly not just labor policy. And on this view, the quality of immigrants, both in terms of their allegiance to the United States of America and their ability to make contributions to the United States of America, matters far more than the quantity of immigration. With more stringent screening of those immigrants for loyalty, for civic knowledge, confirmation of their ability to make contributions, there would almost certainly be far fewer immigrants entering the United States by reducing chain migration, asylum seekers, and refugees.
That's Ramaswamy. Boy, he really stepped in it over the last week when he and Elon Musk, the techno bro, libertarian MAGA people, got into fights with the Turker Gerbs South Park people. It's just a joke, guys. Relax. Calm down, everybody. Don't be such a snowflake. Is American culture to blame? It's not the white people. It's the Indian people. They're the ones who took our gerbs. Who took our gerbs? Well, our next guest took my job at the American Institute for Economic Research. That was my job. It's not fair that John Miltimore got it. I shouldn't have to compete with my fellow white Americans. Good morning, John. All right, we're just trying to piss everybody off today. Did you have a good holiday, bud?
Hey, I did. Like I put on about 10 pounds. I ate a bunch of turkey and prime rib and have Christmas cookies and chocolate. Like up that I got to work on. But 2025, I'll get healthy. I promise.
Sure, you will. Yes, good for you, John. I'd love to see it. And thanks for joining us here back. Everybody's glad to see you here. So I guess big picture here, H-1B visa debate. It really kind of started when Donald Trump named this guy, this Indian man, to his a position that is advising him on AI. I don't know if you know much about this guy, but apparently in his past, he has said that we need to lift the cap on green cards or something. And so MAGA started freaking out. And then Vivek Ramaswamy waded in, and then Elon waded in, and then we're fighting about H-1B visas. And then it should be all immigration is legal, say the anarchists, and then no immigration should be legal, say the far right wing. Where does John Miltimore sit in this?
Just so I'm clear, is that David Sachs you're talking about, the his appointment?
No. So this kind of all started. Krishnan is his name.
Okay.
The guy's name is he's an Indian who came to the United States, and his name is Krishnan. He was appointed to AI to become like an AI advisor for Donald Trump. Sri Ram Krishnan.
Okay, no, I don't know him, but yeah, like to me, this is kind of I hate to use this, but tempest in a teapot, right? Like we got to find something to fight about right now. We're talking about 85,000 visas. Like this is a tiny sliver of the American workforce.
But they've approved 10 times as many as the statute.
Over what period of time?
Well, I mean, this is I don't have the what period of time over here, but I have it pulled up over here. But you go ahead, and I'll tell you.
I guess I guess that's if we're gonna if we're talking a million workers or close to a million workers versus 85,000, that deserves discussion. I think there is this does show like the larger issues.
800,000 per year.
Okay.
So the program has a statutory limit of 85,000 visas per year, but employers routinely receive approval for more than 800,000 applications per year. So they get approved 800,000 a year, but they don't take advantage of all of them.
Okay. Yeah. To me, that when you look at Vivek and Elon, they're kind of, to me, looking like the sensible wing here, saying, look, this whole thing, what we were talking about was, immigration's good, rampant, unlawful immigration is a problem. And I think most Republicans feel that way. Libertarians, I think probably, are more split. But if I'm Donald Trump, I love this. I kind of love what I'm seeing, because when I watch this, I'm like, this reminds me of like Bill Clinton and remember triangulation, how like there'd be this sort of these political wars in between Democrats and Republicans, and Clinton would kind of hover above it and say, you know what, we're going to take a little of this, a little of that, and he'd come up with what was looked at as more centrist, sensible approach. I think that's what Trump is already doing. He's indicated that we're going to see these visas. We'll see more of them. I think Trump has been pretty clear. Like his main focus is on these caravans, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people coming up through the border.
Right, and that's what a lot of people were saying is that it's insane to be having this conversation when we are in the midst of a border crisis in the United States, and that those problems really need to be solved before we tinker around the edges with highly skilled workers in the tech industry.
Yeah, and let's face it, Elon, Vivek, like these are the guys that they have Trump's ear. They have a lot more power than Laura Loomer and some of the fringy American First people who are just mad that Indian people are coming into the U.S. And I'll be honest, like there is a racist component to this. I look on Twitter and I see people who said, I don't care if I pay more. I don't care. I don't want Indians coming into my country.
Yeah,
and
force the business owner to pay more because they don't like, they would rather, it's a very, very strange, like when you see the right start to go left on economics, right? They start adopting Marxist presumptions of it's not your factory, it's our factory, comrade.
Right. No, there is the woke right is real, and they adopt a lot of this leftist thinking. This won't be, maybe this is the first we've seen it where like this kind of public clash. And I was debating whether this is, having these debates take place in public versus behind closed doors. Like that's usually how these things go down, right? Like you have people jostling behind the scenes, all this. We're kind of seeing it on Twitter happen, and to me that's kind of fun. I don't think it'll be too destructive. I think you're gonna see acrimony increase. Like it's gonna go up as we watch it. That's not necessarily bad. Again, Trump can kind of float above this, and he can kind of say, and he'll throw America first a bone. But I think we are talking about sensible immigration policy, which we haven't seen that in a long time, right? And I'll say, like, even among libertarians, I was never comfortable with total open borders because it never seemed practical to me. And I have a lot of libertarian friends who are open borders. It was one of those issues. I'm like, have you thought about having total open borders when we have a massive welfare state? We've seen the last few years, Americans don't want that. They don't like that. I think they're seeing it's not very practical. So, if Trump can kind of say, look, we're gonna go back, we're gonna increase legal immigration, but we're gonna kind of put an end to this. Anybody that can just walk through, or we're going to be releasing people, stop them and release them inside. To me, this is a step towards a more sensible immigration policy.
Well, see, so there's this question then, is there, in some ways you've almost sideways advocated for a utilitarian approach to our libertarian principles rather than the deontological, ideological, philosophically consistent approach to immigration, right? And when I could sidestep that and look at the question of legalization of drugs in places like Portland and in California, where these are essentially Marxist hellholes, relatively speaking, here in the United States, and then they legalize drugs, and then there's drugs all over the streets, and people are tripping out in the streets. And, we've legalized cannabis, John. And even like some of my libertarian or more classical liberal friends are like, New York City smells like shit now. And we're seeing the negative consequences of liberalization to some degree. I mean, you have to ask yourself, is freedom really worth it, John?
Yeah, no, I think it is. And I think we have to look at, at what level are these policies taking place. I think one of the big problems with the war on drugs was that it was led by this big, massive federal initiative, and I don't think the federal government should have became involved in the drug war to the extent it did. I think we should. Hey, if New York wants to deal with some of the social repercussions and the economic consequences of legalized drugs, that's up to them. But when you start to tell all states that they have to they have to do it this way, and we're going to spend billions of dollars trying to fight a drug, like to me that's the wrong approach. Immigration is something I think different. There's you'll find people that disagree on this. Like, where does the Constitution is not clear on this. Like, who gets to really regulate who comes in? I think the most persuasive arguments are that there is a federal place where the federal government, and if you look wherever this comes down in the courts, the federal government does win. Maybe that ship has sailed 150 years ago. Maybe that wasn't always the case until like the Civil War. But in the last, if you look at the case law of the last 150 years, the federal government always wins when it comes to these legal disputes about immigration. So I think there is, this is something that does belong with the feds. Getting a sensible, immigration policy. Now, you can ask, what is a sensible immigration policy? I think that's progress. We haven't really been talking about that for a very long time. We've been using immigration to say that political party is evil because they want to do this, and what a sensible immigration policy looks like, let's have that discussion. I don't think it means anybody can just waltz right through the southern border, but I do think it means like immigration's good. It's helped our country. I think a lot of people need to realize immigration has made America what it is today. Let's appreciate that, and let's bring people in on guest worker programs, especially when they can help us in these important areas.
Right, because what happens when you get this concept where it's like, oh, well, we were here first, right? That's the problem is that there's an infinite regression with that, right? It's like, oh, well, who was here before you? Like I had, the racist Groyper types were really mad at me for saying, I should be able to hire whoever I want as a business owner. And the racist Groyper types were like, well, we're heritage Americans and stuff like that. I'm like, listen, my ancestors go back like early 1700s traceable. So unless you can beat that, you have to shut up and get out because it's my country more than it is yours, right? So, and then of course the Native Americans are sitting there going, okay, white man, right? So it's an infinite regression. But what I thought was interesting was what was not necessarily the immigration question so much as it was the American cultural question here, John.
I was just going to go there.
Yeah, and you were kind of concerned about Vivek Ramaswamy's remarks. MSNBC actually latched onto those remarks and had this to say. Take a listen.
Land of the free, home of the brave, all that good stuff that Elon Musk was tweeting about. However, please don't come for Americans. And I would like, let's be very clear, I would like white Americans to stand up. This is your calling card, honey. Where's your banner? Because they coming for you. They said y'all white and lazy. That's crazy.
Well,
that's crazy.
what I
and
find
if
is
I said
interesting.
it, y'all would be coming for me.
Well,
I would never say that because that's insane.
That's the point. What you have happening here is the very thing that white folks have said about black people.
I'm sorry. I just want to know, Vivek was born in the U.S.
For generations. Vivek is now saying about white people, and they don't like it for some reason. Oh, y'all not lazy. Y'all not slow. Y'all not stupid. Well, that's what we've been saying for 400 years, and yet here we are. You still want to not read our history or go through our CRTs and all this
This is
stuff.
why the great Reverend Jesse Jackson talked about the Rainbow Coalition, honey, and people were uniting across
That's
the
right.
working class, okay? And black people and white folks and Latino folks coming together because the rich people, they're not here for you.
John, I don't know how much hiring you've done, hiring or firing you've ever done, but are white Americans lazy?
No, I don't think white Americans are lazy. I don't like all of this. Like when we start to, it's very collectivist to start to group, look at everybody through this lens of their race and what country they come from. I think Vivek's comments were a bit tone deaf. And it wasn't just what they highlighted there. I thought his, as a nation, we need to start to revere Screech instead of Zach Morris. Does that make any sense? Like to me, if you look at American culture, it's been a country that has always a culture that has always celebrated, the Billy the Kids, the James Deans, the Rebels, the Mavericks, right?
Here's
this is
hold on.
part of
Let me read
American
this.
culture.
Let me read his parts of his quote here. He said, Vivek says, a culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. He was calling for a 1950s style Sputnik moment to prioritize nerdiness over conformity. You got a problem with that?
I think it is tone deaf. Again, I like Zach Morris. Let's not forget, Zach Morris scored higher on his SATs than Screech. He actually did. But no, I'm joking there because it's a fictional story. But I think Vivek is missing something here. This is part of American culture, like this idea that we do celebrate the rebels, and there's something deeply American about that, and something very good. I think that's part of it, the American ethos. We should celebrate that. I'm not worried about our country maybe not having as good of engineers as Singapore or Taiwan. This is exactly why we have guest worker programs, if we can find people to bring in that can offer more there. I do think there is something though that I would have liked Vivek to simply say, look, we need to do better here at home. Why are we falling behind? And instead of blaming culture, let's look at education, right? If you look at, and not just the broader, K through 12 or even in college, if you look, men are not going to college in the same numbers that they were. And I think it's because universities have become a very hostile place for men, especially probably you could say for white men, because of all the DEI stuff we've been seeing in universities. Men are going less and less, women are going more. I have no problem with women increasingly going to college, but I think we should try to answer this problem. Why don't men want to go as much? Let's face it, like when you look at STEM and these things, men tend to perform much better.
DEI, right? So this is an important part of this, right? They called
100%.
us stale, male, and pale, meaning that they didn't want to hire us, right? So corporate America has been weaponized against men like you and I, right? I mean, white women are fine. They'll always be the most protected of any class anywhere at all times, right? Their social status will always be protected. But white men specifically have had war waged upon us, not just by corporate America, but by our government as well with these DEI programs. I mean, there has been a lot of backroom dealing going on, John, that our own country, the one that we were born, I mean, there is an argument here to be made to say, hey, listen, I'm an American citizen, and I certainly don't deserve to be discriminated against. And if the civil rights laws were actually enforced for white males the way that they were for anyone else, none of these DEI or corporate wealth, these programs, government or corporate, would be allowed because they're racist and they're discrimination. And it's going on regardless of whether or not corporations have stated DEI policies or not. Equal opportunity hires right, abound at places, John. And those are the workers that I found quite frequently aren't the ones who are up to snuff. They're just hired because they're minorities. This is a serious problem. And in this sense, I guess the racists are what? Are they correct?
Hey, if you mean the racists, the ones that support these DEI policies, like, no, they're not correct. You know, like these and this is where Vivek should have stayed on this. Like we see DEI in retreat. I think just scrapping a lot of these programs, you will see, you know, over time, it's not going to happen overnight, but you will see universities improve. You will see engineering and STEM output improve. You know, but I think that is the right message to send. We're looking for the best workers. I don't care if they're from India or France or here, you know, in the United States. We want engineers that, and we want tech companies that can be able to recruit.
But you believe in meritocracy, John.
Yes,
you do. But yes, most people don't, right? At the end of the day, most people want a leg up. Almost everybody, right? Everybody wants to get a little edge. Everybody's looking for a little. Oh well, you know, when they're hiring people at these companies. Oh, it's a female. Great. Oh, it's a male, right? Because it's like, you know, if you're a female engineer, right, they're putting you at the top of the line, John. But and that's, I mean, that's official policy, right? Should it be?
No, like these are policies that need to go. We need to say, look, we just want workers that are going to help our company, and we don't care if they're white or brown. We don't care if they're male or female. Like, we want to bring in talent, and you know, we Silicon Valley should have the, you know, we want them to be able to go, you know, say, boy, we're struggling here. We're going to go try to find some from Vietnam or from India or from the Ukraine or wherever it might be. Those are sensible policies, and I think getting the government out of the way is the first step, and that includes dismantling this architecture that we constructed over the last 15 years, which, you know, we're not going after the best people, but we got to check all these boxes, and we know it's real. We all have, you know, friends where we've all encountered it personally when we, you know, somebody didn't get a job because they're the wrong skin color or something, and that's, you know, it's happening. We can't pretend that's not happening, and when that happens, it's as bad as it was. You know, Jim Crow law was bad. Why was Jim Crow law bad? Because we had these laws in place that treated people differently based on the color of their skin. But we're doing it again now, but we're trying to, you know, use this for a more noble purpose. Hire people based on the skills they bring, and put the rest of this nonsense aside.
I mean, that's all well and good, John, but we have a culture that is anti-white male. I mean, have you turned on television lately and watched any commercials or seen like commercials on YouTube where it's always an interracial couple, and if there is a white male, they're always idiots. White men are stupid. White people are stupid in commercials. Like, our own culture is turning against us and openly racist and openly hateful. And the standards for what is allowed and acceptable in terms of discrimination and racial and racist, the standards are completely different for ethnic minorities in the United States versus what they are for people like you and I.
Yeah, no, I think there is a cultural. Now, the problem is you can't have the government trying to fix culture in this way. I think part of it, culture followed government. I think these, you know, there is a reaction here to government policies that were slowly in place, and it put corporations on the defensive. Even before DEI programs were really formalized, you could get sued, right? If somebody could make, you know, show in court that, hey, I didn't get that job and I should have, and they might have had prejudice. So you had all HR departments that really had to get defensive about these things. And the pendulum has gone too far. This is a new story. I was just, you know, nosing around this morning. You had a business in California that was just declared bankruptcy. It's done. They had ladies' night and they got sued over it, right? And that to me is kind of a craziness on a different. You should be able to have a ladies' night without having to worry about lawsuits and things. But this is where we are. Like, we're in this very weird place, both legally and culturally,
where it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to discriminate, except when it's not okay to discriminate. But if it's a white male, then it's always okay to discriminate. It is funny though, John, because, you know, we've had these conversations in like the gender wars perspective. So when Camellia comes on, we kind of talk about this, where, you know, yeah, they sued because it was a ladies' night and all that. And that's kind of funny and weird and strange. But women sued to prevent men from being able to have their own private spaces, golf clubs, you know, gentlemen's clubs and bars and different things like that, right? So I mean, in some ways, we kind of need to overturn the Civil Rights Act entirely because in some ways it's prevented voluntary segregation, not involuntary segregation, meaning if it's a government-funded public school, which I don't believe in the first place, but it shouldn't be able to discriminate on the basis of race. But should I be able to start a nightclub that only hires white guys and only allows white men and white women into it, and no blacks, no Jews, no Indians, nothing? Should I be able to start a nightclub that's a place of business, right? And they say it's open to the public, so you have to be regulated by the civil rights laws. But if we abolish the Civil Rights Act, then I could have a white male and white female, Christian, Protestant only, no Catholics allowed nightclub, right?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. If you go back far enough, like nobody can actually talk about the Civil Rights Act except through this lens where we completely glorify it, right? Like it's good, and to even question that makes you a bad person. But we got to go back and say, hey, freedom of association was kind of good, right? Like it was sort of, it allowed people, like we're going to associate together, and if we don't want to associate over here, but to make that argument today puts you in like this sort of fringe place, right, where you're looked at as a racist or a demon or whatever. Freedom of association is good, and that doesn't mean that I want to go and say, Jews can't come or something like that, but to recognize that letting people associate is okay, and not just letting people associate if they're brown people in their dorm, right? We've been seeing that more and more, like people just choosing to segregate, right? Like we're going to have our own group. You know what? That's okay, but that needs to apply to everyone. You can't say that only applies to certain people.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, but it's there's so many interconnected, overlapping problems. It's hard to know which is really the issue that we should be tackling here, right? Because obviously I think that leading with let's overturn the Civil Rights Act and make it so that whites can have their white-only clubs and all this kind of stuff, right? And then businesses can hire only white males if they want to. Even if you and I believe that, maybe tactically not the right way to start, because even if you say the truth, if you say it too early, people get really pissed at you and they want to kill you. John, is there anything else on this topic or anything that you'd like to share or plug before we let you go, brother?
Hey, no, I'm good. Just check out my Substack, the Take by John Miltimore. Growing. I publish there pretty much every day, but if you haven't visited it, check it out.
Here we go. John Miltimore. Hey, Happy New Year to you, brother. We'll see you next week, okay?
Hey, thanks a lot, AP. You have a great week.
You too.
Mr. President, we are in trouble. We remember when the phrase sound as a dollar was an expression of absolute dependability until inflation began to shrink our dollar and our savings. We've always had a faith that the days of our children would be better than our own. Our people are losing that faith. It is a crisis of confidence. It is a crisis that strikes at the very heart and soul and spirit of our national will. Mr. President, you're not leading this nation. We've gone from a position of energy independence to one in which almost half the oil we use comes from foreign countries. Our excessive dependence on OPEC has already taken a tremendous toll on our economy and our people. Our neck is stretched over the fence, and OPEC has a knife. Mr. President, we've got to use what we have. We have the natural resources. We have more oil in our shale alone than several Saudi Arabias. We have more coal than any nation on earth. The real issue is freedom. Mr. President, you're not leading this nation. You don't see the people enough anymore. Washington, D.C. has become an island. The gap between our citizens and our government has never been so wide. We must face the truth. What can we do? We know the strength of America. We are strong. We can regain our unity. We can regain our confidence. Restoring that faith and that confidence to America is now the most important task we face. The path of common purpose and the restoration of American values. That path leads to true freedom for our nation and ourselves.
Carter dead at 100 years old. We'll be right back to talk about his 5 greatest accomplishments on the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Don't go away.
The unseen side of the system. Have you ever felt furious seeing prices surge? It's not just you. People worldwide take issue with pricing systems. From rent hikes to minimum wage debates, prices stir emotions, yet they govern the world's economy. Let's explore why prices exist and why we secretly can't live without them. Prices aren't just numbers. They signal value and regulate resources. They guide producers and consumers to make choices, ensuring that scarce resources are allocated wisely. Without prices, chaos reigns. Too much demand, not enough supply. Ever wondered what happens when this system is disrupted? Spoiler, it's not pretty. In society, prices often feel unfair. Rent seems unaffordable. Medicine costs too much. Surge pricing during holidays feels exploitative. Politicians and activists target these frustrations, promising affordability. But are price controls truly the solution? Think about surge pricing for fast food or ride shares. Sure, the extra cost stings, but it also incentivizes supply during peak demand. When businesses adjust prices dynamically, the system balances itself. Rent control is often hailed as a solution to housing unaffordability. However, capping rents distorts the market, discouraging property improvements and shrinking housing availability. Paradoxically, the people it's meant to help end up struggling the most. What if prices, unhampered, naturally guide housing stability? Setting a higher minimum wage sounds like a win for workers. Yet mandating wages above market rates can lead to reduced jobs or resource cuts elsewhere. Could it be that prioritizing economic growth instead, without forced wage caps, might result in better earning opportunities for all? Price controls often lead to unforeseen ripple effects. Shortages emerge because demand outpaces supply. Businesses may lower quality to maintain profit margins. Entire industries can struggle when restrictions stifle natural adjustments. These interventions affect consumers most, trapping societies in cycles of economic instability. Prices reflect scarcity and preference, nudging the system toward balance. Imagine a world without prices, a recipe for inefficiency and disorder. Prices act as silent organizers, helping communities prioritize. Even though nobody likes prices, respecting their role is critical to innovation and progress. It's easy to villainize higher prices or dynamic systems. Terms like corporate greed resonate emotionally, but oversimplify the problem. Educating ourselves about their necessity can reshape these damaging beliefs. An unrestricted pricing system may sound harsh, but supports long-term health. Markets tend to self-correct through competition. By allowing fair price adjustments, businesses optimize production and respond faster to shifting demands. History shows that unchecked markets consistently outperform heavily regulated systems. Are surging prices unethical, or is restraining them more harmful? Critics point to affordability crises, but blocking price signals prevents sustainable growth. Ethically, it's worth examining whether bold political decisions against pricing exploit public misunderstanding for popularity rather than addressing structural improvements. Stable pricing fosters opportunity and equality by generating wealth. Countries over-regulating prices often see increased poverty. While uncomfortable, respecting the price system aligns communities for survival and success. Broadly, pricing stability enhances education, healthcare, and job accessibility when left to dynamic forces. So next time you feel angry at rising costs, pause and think. Prices keep our economy afloat. They're the unsung heroes of stability amid chaos. Let's champion systems that allow natural economic flows instead of disrupting them, ensuring progress not just for some, but all. If this resonated, share this video. Challenge your opinions about prices and advocate for informed debates around economic policies. The future isn't about hating prices. It's about understanding their role in creating opportunity. Let's make smarter decisions and thrive together.
Well, Molly, some breaking news. Reports say Jimmy Carter, the 39th president of the United States, has passed away at the age of 100. He became the first former president to reach that age October 1st. His wife of 77 years, former First Lady Rosalind Carter, died in November 2023 at 96. Carter was a peanut farmer from Plains, Georgia, who wore sweaters and had a down-home manner. He served in the Navy before turning to politics, first as a Georgia state senator and later as governor of the Peach State. Carter was elected president in 1976 in the wake of Watergate, defeating incumbent Gerald Ford. Carter's term was marred by domestic and foreign issues. He faced several economic challenges, including high inflation and gas shortages. He also struggled with problems overseas, most notably the Iran hostage crisis. Carter lost his 1980 bid for re-election to Ronald Reagan in a landslide.
Good morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. I'm so glad to have you here. You live stream people who join me this early, and you're a very special crew, and I just want to say thank you. 2024 has been an amazing year, and if everything in 2025 goes as I'm planning, 2025 will be an amazing year, but as we all know, sometimes things get a little wonky. So I think 2025 is going to be great. I'm going to work to make it great. We're making America great again. Jimmy Carter passed away at 100 years of age over the last weekend. Joe Biden weighed in and had something to say about it. Joe Biden.
You know, he was like my dad. He thought that, you say, Joe, your job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about dignity, your dignity.
Joe Biden says Jimmy Carter was like his dad. President Trump weighed in as well. He said, President Jimmy Carter is dead at 100 years of age. While I strongly disagreed with him philosophically and politically, I also realized he truly loved and respected our country and all it stands for. He worked hard to make America a better place, and for that, I give him my highest respect. He was a truly good man, and of course, he will be greatly missed. He was also very consequential, far more than most presidents after he left the Oval Office. Warmest condolences from Melania and I to his wonderful statement there from incoming President Trump. We are going now to talk a little bit about some of his biggest accomplishments. And be careful to use the word great, because some of them weren't great. But let's go through them and have a conversation. The Carter years brought a Democrat to office after the short presidency of Gerald Ford, who took office after the Watergate controversy that ended the Nixon administration. But the Georgia Democrats' presidency was ended by the Reagan Revolution, which impacted the political scene for the following moments. Here are some of the defining moments, the 5 defining moments of the Carter presidency. Number 1 were the Camp David Accords. Probably considered his crowning achievement as president was the peace treaty that was signed between Israel and Egypt in 1978. Carter invited Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin and Egyptian President Anwar Sadat to Camp David in Maryland to negotiate a peace agreement. After nearly 2 weeks of intense negotiations, which very nearly failed multiple times, the 3 men signed the Camp David Accords. The agreement included a process for Palestinian self-government in the West Bank and Gaza. That was an outline for a peace treaty between Egypt and Israel, and frameworks for peace among Israel and among its other neighbors in the region. The Sinai Peninsula was demilitarized, and Israeli ships won free passage through the Suez Canal. Sadat and Begin would then be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize later in 1981, and Sadat was assassinated 2 years later. Now, while the treaty did not lead to a lasting peace throughout the Middle East and was opposed by the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and other Arab states, it cast a long shadow on peace negotiations in the region, including a 2000 effort by former President Bill Clinton. The intervention by Carter remains the most significant diplomatic accomplishments by a president in modern history. It's interesting, the Anwar Sadat, for whatever reason, I remember my mother and father, when I was a little boy, they would talk about Anwar Sadat and the assassination, and they would always speak kindly of Anwar Sadat for whatever reason. So I am interested in hiring UX designers. Somebody said this, right? Sorry, excuse me, I got a little distracted there. We're speaking about Jimmy Carter's greatest moments. Some say greatest, well, not so great. Great, what are the great? In mid-1979, the U.S. was facing high inflation, rising interest rates, and both unemployment and energy crisis. The problems were crippling Carter's presidency. In July of 1979, rising interest rates and both unemployment and energy crises. The problems were crippling Carter's presidency. In July 1979, with an approval rating of just 29%, Carter decided to address the American public. In a nationally televised speech from Camp David, Carter laid out energy proposals such as increased domestic production, restricting foreign imports, and taxing energy profits to fund research for new energy technologies. But the speech wouldn't be remembered for Carter's vision to curb the crisis. Instead, Carter's speech would be remembered as his melees, or his crisis of confidence speech. Carter said the U.S. was facing a fundamental threat to American democracy, which he called a crisis of confidence. He argued that Americans lost faith in themselves and their ability to govern and the future of the nation. It was kind of a sober assessment by Carter, but it was one that voters did not greet kindly. Instead, it dropped public confidence in the embattled president even further. This is an interesting chapter in history. Against the backdrop of the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979, Carter ordered a boycott by U.S. athletes of the 1980 Summer Olympics that were set to be held by the Soviet Union. Carter convinced other countries, including Canada, West Germany, and Japan, to boycott the event. Ultimately, 66 countries in total boycotted the games in an effort to isolate Moscow, which kept troops in Afghanistan. Fascinating. Imagine if the Soviet Union had done the same to the United States after our invasion. The 1980 boycott led the Soviet Union to boycott the 1984 Olympics, there you go, hosted by the United States in Los Angeles, an effort that was joined by other Soviet states, but nobody cared because they weren't that competitive. In both games, the boycotts had a huge impact on the competition, given the countries involved. But some athletes who had trained for years to compete at the games were angry with Carter's decision. When the idea was floated for athletes from boycotting nations to compete in the games under a neutral banner, Carter threatened to revoke the passports of U.S. athletes. Oh, learn something new. Still, many Americans saw the decision as another way to fight against the Soviet regime. The U.S. has not launched a similar boycott of the Olympics since 1980. Matt Unruh, good to see you, brother. Welcome back. Appreciate you, brother. The next one that I know a lot of libertarians are really excited to talk about, the creation of the Department of Education.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
Okay. All right, Michael Scott. Carter oversaw the creation of the Department of Education, a sizable expansion of the federal government that was opposed strongly by many Republicans at the time and still is today. GOP candidates spent more than 40 years after the decision talking about ending the federal department. The newly established department was an offshoot of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. It was created in part to meet Carter's commitment to make the federal government more efficient. Well, imagine that. They needed a Doge at the time. Before signing off on the creation of the agency in 1979, Carter argued that the federal government had beleaguered education in the U.S. because of bureaucratic buck passing, even though he thought that federal government played a junior role to states and localities on education. He argued that a new federal bureaucracy was needed to streamline federal responsibilities. Interesting. But Carter's move to create the department also came after he picked up the influential 1976 endorsement of the National Education Association, if you can believe it, the largest labor union in the U.S. He committed himself to creating the department to secure the endorsement. The department faces enduring Republican criticism, with many over the years calling for it to be abolished. By 2022, the department's annual budget was more than $80 billion. What do you say? I say, boom, abolish. The Carter presidency was badly shaken by the Iranian hostage crisis, in which 52 Americans were held hostage at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, for 444 days. The 1980 presidential campaign took place against the backdrop of the hostage crisis, which began in November 1979 after the U.S. admitted the Iranian Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, into the country to receive medical treatment following the Islamic Revolution that toppled him. Daily newscasts on the hostage crisis added to Carter's already deep political problems, contributing to a sense of a nation defeated and in decline. Carter at one point ordered a rescue mission to try to release the U.S. hostages. That ended in failure, with 8 U.S. service members dying when a helicopter crashed into a transport aircraft. Carter worked tirelessly to secure the release of the hostages, but they were not freed until minutes after former President Reagan was sworn in on January 20th, 1981. While polls weeks ahead of the 1980 presidential election showed a close race, Reagan won in a landslide. Jimmy Carter won just 6 states plus the District of Columbia, taking 49 electoral votes to 489 won for the Reagan ticket. Reagan won the popular vote by more than 8 million votes, and thank goodness for that.
Mr. President, we are in trouble. We remember when the phrase "sound as a dollar" was an expression of absolute dependability until inflation began to shrink our dollar and our savings. We've always had a faith that the days of our children would be better than our own. Our people are losing that faith. It is a crisis of confidence. It is a crisis that strikes at the very heart and soul and spirit of our national will. Mr. President, you're not leading this nation. We've gone from a position of energy independence to one in which almost half the oil we use comes from foreign countries. Our excessive dependence on OPEC has already taken a tremendous toll on our economy and our people. Our neck is stretched over the fence, and OPEC has a knife. Mr. President, we've got to use what we have. We have the natural resources. We have more oil in our shale alone than several Saudi Arabias. We have more coal than any nation on earth. The real issue is freedom. Mr. President, you're not leading this nation. You don't see the people enough anymore. Washington, D.C. has become an island. The gap between our citizens and our government has never been so wide. We must face the truth. What can we do? We know the strength of America. We are strong. We can regain our unity. We can regain our confidence. Restoring that faith and that confidence to America is now the most important task we face. The path of common purpose and the restoration of American values. That path leads to true freedom for our nation and ourselves.
It's been a great show back, guys. Just want to say thanks so much for hanging out with us so bright and early on the Wake Up America show. We've got 4 shows this week, so that's today, tomorrow, Wednesday, New Year's Day, we're off. Thursday and Friday, we are back, and then things are just kind of back to normal. If you haven't heard already, we've launched a brand new brand of tea over at the For Liberty shop, guys. So if you can bless me with something.
Can you bless me with something? Oh, God. Money wipes. Please. Can you stop this?
Check out For Liberty. Patriotic premium teas available exclusively at forlibertyshop.com. Steeped in patriotism. You can get those exclusively at forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4. libertyshop.com. So head on over today. Exit through the Grift Shop. Bold, refreshing, and unapologetically American. Our teas aren't just beverages. They're a revolution in every brew. You can try our mango treat, peach paradise, apple cider rooibos. That's how you pronounce that. I had to learn that. Apple cider rooibos. English breakfast, the flagship tea. Don't throw that tea in the harbor. Jasmine For Liberty. Masala chai. That's our Vivek Ramaswamy tea over there. Yes. Good morning, pineapple. Earl Grey. For Liberty, patriotic premium teas. Exit through the gift shop. Grab yourself a bag of patriotic tea, guys. And we'll see you right back here again tomorrow on the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Thanks, guys. Take care.
The unseen side of the system. Have you ever felt furious seeing prices surge? It's not just you. People worldwide take issue with pricing systems. From rent hikes to minimum wage debates, prices stir emotions, yet they govern the world's economy. Let's explore why prices exist and why we secretly can't live without them. Prices aren't just numbers. They signal value and regulate resources. They guide producers and consumers to make choices, ensuring that scarce resources are allocated wisely. Without prices, chaos reigns. Too much demand, not enough supply. Ever wondered what happens when this system is disrupted? Spoiler, it's not pretty. In society, prices often feel unfair. Rent seems unaffordable. Medicine costs too much. Surge pricing during holidays feels exploitative. Politicians and activists target these frustrations, promising affordability. But are price controls truly the solution? Think about surge pricing for fast food or ride shares. Sure, the extra cost stings, but it also incentivizes supply during peak demand. When businesses adjust prices dynamically, the system balances itself. Rent control is often hailed as a solution to housing unaffordability. However, capping rents distorts the market, discouraging property improvements and shrinking housing availability. Paradoxically, the people it's meant to help end up struggling the most. What if prices, unhampered, naturally guide housing stability? Setting a higher minimum wage sounds like a win for workers. Yet mandating wages above market rates can lead to reduced jobs or resource cuts elsewhere. Could it be that prioritizing economic growth instead, without forced wage caps, might result in better earning opportunities for all? Price controls often lead to unforeseen ripple effects. Shortages emerge because demand outpaces supply. Businesses may lower quality to maintain profit margins. Entire industries can struggle when restrictions stifle natural adjustments. These interventions affect consumers most, trapping societies in cycles of economic instability. Prices reflect scarcity and preference, nudging the system toward balance. Imagine a world without prices, a recipe for inefficiency and disorder. Prices act as silent organizers, helping communities prioritize. Even though nobody likes prices, respecting their role is critical to innovation and progress. It's easy to villainize higher prices or dynamic systems. Terms like corporate greed resonate emotionally, but oversimplify the problem. Educating ourselves about their necessity can reshape these damaging beliefs. An unrestricted pricing system may sound harsh, but supports long-term health. Markets tend to self-correct through competition. By allowing fair price adjustments, businesses optimize production and respond faster to shifting demands. History shows that unchecked markets consistently outperform heavily regulated systems. Are surging prices unethical, or is restraining them more harmful? Critics point to affordability crises, but blocking price signals prevents sustainable growth. Ethically, it's worth examining whether bold political decisions against pricing exploit public misunderstanding for popularity rather than addressing structural improvements. Stable pricing fosters opportunity and equality by generating wealth. Countries over-regulating prices often see increased poverty. While uncomfortable, respecting the price system aligns communities for survival and success. Broadly, pricing stability enhances education, healthcare, and job accessibility when left to dynamic forces. So next time you feel angry at rising costs, pause and think. Prices keep our economy afloat. They're the unsung heroes of stability amid chaos. Let's champion systems that allow natural economic flows instead of disrupting them, ensuring progress not just for some, but all. If this resonated, share this video. Challenge your opinions about prices and advocate for informed debates around economic policies. The future isn't about hating prices. It's about understanding their role in creating opportunity. Let's make smarter decisions and thrive together.